You do not do these things consciously. That is the point. The habits that expose a chosen soul are not performed or cultivated, or even fully understood by the person carrying them. They are organic expressions of an internal architecture that cannot help but manifest in behavior, in pattern, in the specific way a person moves through rooms and conversations and seasons of difficulty. Other people notice them, sometimes with respect, sometimes with something more complicated. Sometimes they notice them years before the person exhibiting them does, because the behavior is legible to an outside observer in ways it is not legible from the inside. The seventh habit in this list is the one most chosen souls are fully unaware they are exhibiting. The fifth is the one that has caused the most friction in your life with people who encountered it without understanding what they were looking at. And number three is the one that has followed you since before you can remember. But all seven are present in you. They have been present your entire life. And once you see them, once you can read the behavior as the frequency signature it actually is, you will stop wondering what to call yourself. The habits already answered that question a long time ago. If you are someone whose behavior in difficult moments consistently surprises even yourself, type 777 below. Most people think of habits as things they choose, repeat, and can revise if sufficiently motivated. But there is a category of behavior that does not work this way. A category that arrives with the soul rather than being acquired by it, that expresses itself consistently across every context, comfortable and uncomfortable, public and private, with people who see you clearly and with people who do not see you at all. That persists across attempts to revise it because it is not a learned pattern, but a structural one. The 7 habits in this transmission belong to this category. They are not things you picked up from your environment or your upbringing, though your environment and upbringing may have reinforced or suppressed specific expressions of them. They are expressions of your frequency, of the particular energetic architecture that identifies you as a soul, carrying a chosen designation. Understanding them as habits rather than as quirks or pathologies or coincidences changes the way you carry them, because a habit can be judged. It can be viewed as excessive, inconvenient, or socially inappropriate. A frequency signature cannot. It is simply what it is. And what it is, in the case of the 7 behaviors in this transmission, is confirmation of what you carry, of what you were built for, of what even your involuntary behavior has been quietly announcing to every room you have ever entered. You have always known this, even when you had no words for it. The knowing was never accidental. This is not coincidence. This is confirmation. You did not arrive here by accident. The assignment was always real, even when it had no name. Nothing about what you carry was ever random. The preparation was always pointing toward this. You were built for exactly this season. The soul knows what the mind is still catching up to. The first habit is the one that people sometimes call overthinking, and it is not overthinking. It is the specific cognitive pattern of a soul that perceives multiple simultaneous dimensions of any situation. The visible layer, the subterranean layer, the implications that have not yet made themselves apparent, and the energetic layer that underlies all of them. When a chosen soul appears to be dwelling longer than necessary on a decision, a conversation, or a situation, they are usually processing the actual complexity of what they perceive. The ordinary label of overthinking was invented to describe the behavior from the outside of a frequency it could not internally access. The second habit is the one that involves doing things for people they did not ask for and that cost more than anyone understood. You see what people need before they articulate it, sometimes before they are aware of it themselves, and you respond, not because you are compelled or resentful or strategically motivated, but because the perception creates what feels like a natural obligation to respond. This habit has been misunderstood by the people it was directed at and by you in the moments you wished it would go quiet. The third habit is the truth-telling that you cannot always stop even when you know it will cost you. Not cruelty, not judgment. The specific compulsion to name what is true in a room or a relationship or a moment when everyone else is maintaining an agreement to leave it unnamed. Chosen souls carry an internal dissonance when falseness is present. That becomes difficult to sustain indefinitely. The truth emerges. Not always at the right moment by social standards, almost always at the right moment by spiritual ones. The fourth habit is the one that looks like withdrawal and is actually discernment. The chosen soul learns very early to read environments before committing to them, to stand at the edge of a social situation and assess the energetic field before moving into the center of it. People sometimes ride this as shyness or arrogance, depending on what they bring to their interpretation of it. It is neither. It is the instinct of a soul that knows the cost of entering an environment that is incompatible with its frequency and has learned, sometimes through expensive experience, to check before crossing the threshold. The fifth habit is the inability to maintain pretense past a certain point. Other people can sustain social performances for extended periods. The chosen soul loses the ability to do so in environments or relationships where the performance requires suppression of something that is true. This is the habit that has caused the most friction. It manifests as being too direct, too transparent, too unwilling to play the game everyone else seems to play without apparent discomfort. It is also, when read accurately, one of the clearest signatures of a soul that is carrying something that cannot coexist with falseness. The sixth habit is the one that happens in crisis. When other people move into panic or paralysis, something in the chosen soul goes still. You recognize some of these more quickly than others. The truth-telling habit has probably been the most visible and the most costly. The moments where what needed to be said arrived in you before you had assessed whether the moment was ready to receive it. The specific social turbulence that followed. The long processing of why it happened the way it did, when the why was, in the end, simply the habit operating. The inability to maintain pretense has shaped your relationships and your professional life in ways that were not always comfortable or convenient. The rooms you could not stay in past the point where the pretense became the price of admission. The versions of yourself you were asked to perform that lasted until they did not. The crisis stillness has probably surprised you more than once. The moment when something collapsed around you and instead of panic, there was a clarity you did not ask for and could not fully explain. And afterward, the emotional arrival, delayed, more private, more complete than the visible responses of the people who had appeared to process it in real time. And underneath all 7 habits, running beneath the behaviors that have been misread and misnamed and sometimes used against you, the persistent, coherent pattern of a soul that is not random, that is built to a specific specification, that behaves the way it behaves because of what it carries, not what it has chosen. You have always known this, even when you had no words for it. The knowing was never accidental. This is not coincidence. This is confirmation. You did not arrive here by accident. The assignment was always real, even when it had no name. Nothing about what you carry was ever random. The preparation was always pointing toward this. You were built for exactly this season. The soul knows what the mind is still catching up to. What was hidden is very close to being revealed. This is not the middle. This is the threshold. The evidence of the preparation is in the survival. You are further along than the current view suggests. The 7 habits you carry are not problems to solve. They are the vocabulary of your frequency. The behavioral language through which your soul communicates what it is, what it perceives, and what it was built to do. Suppressing them has cost you something you did not need to spend. Managing them down to a more socially convenient version of themselves has required energy that belongs to the assignment. This does not mean behaving without awareness. The truth-telling habit, understood clearly, can become something more precise than the compulsive version. The inability to maintain pretense, channeled consciously, becomes integrity rather than friction. The stillness under crisis, activated intentionally, becomes the kind of leadership that the current moment is asking for. What changes when you understand the 7 habits as frequency rather than flaw is the relationship you have with them. Instead of apologizing for what they produce, you can begin to work with what they actually are. Instead of being surprised by your own behavior, in moments of pressure, you can recognize the pattern and use it deliberately. The chosen soul who understands its own habits is significantly more effective than the one still trying to figure out why it cannot simply behave like everyone else. The answer to that question has always been the same. It never could, and it was never supposed to. You have always known this, even when you had no words for it. The knowing was never accidental. This is not coincidence. This is confirmation. You did not arrive here by accident. The assignment was always real, even when it had no name. Nothing about what you carry was ever random. The preparation was always pointing toward this. You were built for exactly this season. The 7 habits have been operating in you your entire life. They have been misread by people who did not have the framework to understand what they were looking at. They have sometimes been misread by you for the same reason. They have produced friction, confusion, and the specific exhaustion of a person who cannot fully explain their own behavior in terms that fit the available vocabulary. But they have also produced something else, a trail. A coherent, recognizable pattern across the entire span of your life, in every environment, every relationship, every season of difficulty and clarity that points to the same conclusion, that what you carry is specific, that what you are is not a category error or a genetic accident or a failure of adaptation, that the habits are the signature, and the signature was placed there with intention. In 2026, as the chosen souls in this transmission move into the deployment phase of their assignment, the habits that once seemed like liabilities become tools. The frequency they have been expressing involuntarily can now be expressed consciously, precisely in the exact context where it will do the work it was designed to do. Type 787 below if you recognized yourself in these 7 habits. Let the next soul reading these words stop apologizing for the behavior that was never the problem. It was always the proof. You have always known this, even when you had no words for it.